I would say the next most important thing that is needed at that step of,
Mhm.
of building the foundation sense of numeracy, and also that is needed at every step as you go along. So sticking with this metaphor of the bridge, we might think of this next thing is as maybe a handrail because it's something that's needed all along, and that is to have math instruction that is focusing on understanding the concept being learned. So the math concept being learned until it is absolutely understood before we teach them the procedures. So right now we do a lot of teaching how to do a math procedure, how to do, say, double digit subtraction. Our students don't understand what it is they are actually doing. So if we focus on understanding concepts first, um, that means we're using a lot less rote memorization, rules, and we're really helping them use reason and logic to really understand what is happening when we talk about subtraction, multiplication, division. Um, and when we do this, then they're also able to apply
Mhm.
what they've learned. They apply the concept and they can use it in a variety of ways to find solutions to multiple problems, multiple situations. Like you were saying, that flexibility and not rigidity, they're able to do that.
Yeah. I saw that with my daughter. That was another area. She was so procedure driven
Mhm.
that her brain just wasn't recalling the information, didn't understand the information. So taking her back and teaching her the actual concept, it actually made math smaller for her.
Yeah.
Um, the
Yes.
person, her interventionist, she said she had so much math. She's like, she has so much math in there, all
Yeah.
over. She's working so hard to unite it and make it make
Yes.
sense. But the moment they showed my daughter how to do, like, what the concept is, what she's doing, why she's doing, you know,
Yes.
she it like tied math together and made it smaller.
Yes.
So I saw that and I said, this makes a lot of sense. I don't know
Yeah.
why we didn't think of it before. Um, I say it's like, can you imagine if we when we teach reading, if we don't learn the ABCs, we don't learn letter sounds or
Yes.
rules, and we just had to learn words. Like,
Yeah.
just imagine that's all the instruction we got.
Yeah.
That's procedure driven.
Yeah.
So it's not done in reading. So I think it's something we could really do in math, and I really think it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah. Talk
How about
about
you?
reducing that cognitive load that I've learned about from you.
Yes, and with our ADHD brain, we need all the reducing of the cognitive load. It's definitely something that is helpful. So when you talk about doing this concept type of teaching, instruction versus
Yeah.
the procedure, do
Yeah.
you have any examples? I know I needed examples. I
Yeah.
needed like visuals. I needed to understand, like, what does that mean and
Yeah.
what does it look like to do eat both of those.
Yeah. I think a couple things that are really helpful when you're trying to focus on them understanding the concept and what is happening first. And I'm not saying that you don't ever get to procedures. You will get to showing them how to do things, but you have to connect it. So two things would be multisensory tools and then an exploration of the math language. So both of these um, will help them have a real understanding of the concept. So we're hearing more and more about multisensory learning and the importance of that. And that is because multisensory learning really helps us build those neural pathways to really understand what it is that we're learning. We learn through experience. I like to
Yes.
think about how ridiculous it would be if all of us grown-ups took a cooking class and we watched someone write cooking themes on the board or how to cook a chicken on the board. We need to be in the kitchen. We need to be working with the tools. We need to be working with the food. And that is when you really learn how to cook. So it's similar for our students. They need to be working with the quantities, working with the numbers, actually physically doing the math. Um, so they have that hands-on connection, they have the visual connection, and they can engage better. Um, and this is needed more than just first and second grade. And it's needed more than just, well, I did one lesson on multisensory. They need to experience it over and over again until they really know how to do it. That would be similar to taking only one lesson of your cooking class was actually cooking. That would be ridiculous. So you need to do it over and over again. And even in the older grades, like both your daughter and mine were in sixth grade, multisensory tools were helping them understand the concepts.
Yeah. I love that. I remember when my daughter started her intervention, I remember the teacher sent, because her lessons were going to be on Zoom, and the teacher said, I'm going to send you guys like the curriculum, or the math thing she's going to be doing. And I'll never forget, a big box came to my home, and like no textbooks. There was like no pens. It was like all hands-on
Yeah.
manipulatives. And I was like, how is she going to learn without? I mean, I was so used to at least some kind of structured instruction
Mhm.
with the
Worksheets.
worksheet. Yes, I know. It's horrible to think about. But what unlocked in my daughter's head by doing that, and what I love is that they stayed there. They did not move to procedure until she
Yeah.
fully understood the concept.
Yeah.
And once she understood the concept, then she could go in. And it just, like, even with the emotional regulation, I mean,
Yeah.
it helped her. She was calm and regulated because
Yeah.
she was being taught at her level, and she was taught with using multisensory things, which is regulating.
Yep.
And it's getting the math in other areas of her brain. They're even
Yeah.
singing and her creative self. I mean, it just was really wonderful to see. And she learned in 1 year more than she had learned from kindergarten to sixth grade.
Yeah.
I mean, it was insane to see. It was
Yeah.
insane.
I love that. This is
Yeah.
so great. I would say that so the other thing is connecting, really exploring the language. So when we're trying to help them understand the concept, we're using multisensory tools. We're also really exploring the language. So having clear language to talk about what we mean, because a lot of students actually get really tripped up in how we word things or how we don't word things. So an example might be if you're talking about fractions. Well, most students think of a fraction of a number, a line, and a number underneath. And using in the language would be talking about what is fraction? Do you know that comes from the word fracture, which means to break apart? So if we fracture our arm muscle and while we're playing soccer, we've taken our bone, we've taken it and we've broken it into smaller pieces. So a fraction is a piece of something that was whole, or the whole thing. So breaking that down really helps them understand, oh, so we're not just talking about numbers and what to do with them when they're over a line. We're really talking about a piece of something that was whole, and it just makes a lot more sense. Another example would be um, subtraction. We have so many different ways of talking about subtraction. So it would be helpful to talk about, what does subtraction mean? Subtraction comes from a word that means withdrawing. So withdrawing something from a whole. And sometimes we say minus, and sometimes we say take away. And so really fleshing out the action of what subtraction is. Most students, they just see that minus sign and know it means subtraction, but they don't understand the concept of subtracting. So then you're working with numbers, and it's very confusing. So that really helps them understand the concept better.
I saw that with my daughter. I remember one thing she struggled with was the subtraction, where you had to cross out the zero, go to your
Yes.
neighbor, borrow your milk from the neighbor. And it was cute and it looked like it made sense,
Mhm.
but she did not understand why that zero turned to a 10. And then with
Uh-huh.
the other ones, that 10 now turned to a 9 because they have to give something to this neighbor over here. Like, it just did not make sense. But
Yeah.
when she had all the multi-sensory tools, it made sense to her.
Yeah.
And so she was like, oh, that's why I have to take from over here. Um,
Yes.
it was really helpful to do that way. And with the ADHD brain, like you said, that cognitive load, it definitely lessens it. And you're getting math in the brain and it's going in long-term memory.
Yeah.
It's not something where you're learning a quick procedure, flushing it out on a test, and then done.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you can build on it. My daughter truly has retained level after level after level
Yep.
because it's getting in her brain and she's retaining the information and recalling what she needs.
Yep.
And that language piece is huge. It was huge. I mean, she spent lessons just talking with
Yeah.
her teacher, just
Yeah.
literally discussing math.
Yeah.
What's additionally more than, add this to, take,
Yes.
I mean, there's so many ways you could say it
Yep.
because it really tripped up on tests when the words
Yes.
different, like some, what does some mean? Like I didn't learn some, so,
Yes.
and they get really tripped up, especially if you have ADHD and you struggle with your focus and your attention and your working memory and
Yeah.
things like that, it's going to get real difficult. So
Yeah.
that language piece is actually something that I did not even realize how much was needed until I witnessed it myself.